It all starts with a group of teenage hackers and whistleblowers challenging the U.S. government's surveillance and intelligence apparatus. This story highlights how these young hackers targeted officials such as James Clapper and John Brennan, exploiting lax security to access private information and leak documents via platforms like WikiLeaks. This is their story.
October 2015, Langley, Virginia. Inside the heavily fortified headquarters of the CIA, Director John Brennan picks up his phone. The voice on the other end is young, cocky, and utterly unbelievable. "Hey John," it says, "it's me, Kraka." Brennan is stunned. This isn't just some prank call. This kid, this teenager, is calling him from inside his own personal AOL account. An account containing highly sensitive documents, including Brennan's 47-page application for top-secret security clearance. For the head of the world's most powerful intelligence agency, this was more than an embarrassment. It was a nightmare. And it was just the beginning. This wasn't a sophisticated state-sponsored attack. This was the work of a group of teenage hackers, barely old enough to drive, who called themselves Crackers with Attitude, or CWA. From their bedrooms, armed with nothing more than basic computers and a deep understanding of social engineering, they launched a digital insurgency against the very heart of the US government. How did a bunch of kids manage to breach the highest levels of national security? The answer is shockingly simple. They just asked. The leader, Kraka, wasn't a coding genius. He was a master of social engineering. He would call tech support at companies like Verizon and Comcast, pretending to be an employee or the account holder himself. With a mix of confidence, jargon, and sheer audacity, he convinced customer service representatives to reset passwords and hand over access to email accounts belonging to some of the most powerful people in America. It was a technique known as vishing or voice phishing. He targeted not just Brennan, but also the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, and even the White House's senior advisor on science and technology. Once inside these accounts, the hackers found a treasure trove. They discovered contact lists for top intelligence officials, sensitive government reports, and personal information that could be used for further attacks. They weren't after money. They were hacktivists, driven by a chaotic anti-government ideology. They started leaking the documents online, tweeting from hijacked accounts, and taunting their powerful victims with the hashtag #FreePalestine. They saw themselves as digital revolutionaries, exposing the hypocrisy of a surveillance state that couldn't even protect its own secrets. The FBI was in a frenzy. How could they track down these anonymous phantoms who seemed to operate without a trace? The hackers used sophisticated methods to hide their identities, routing their internet traffic through multiple countries and using encrypted communication channels. For months, it was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. The hackers would publicly mock the federal agents chasing them, feeling invincible behind their screens. But their youthful arrogance would be their downfall. In a series of interviews with journalists, Kraka and his friends couldn't resist bragging about their exploits. They revealed small, seemingly insignificant details about their lives. A favorite video game, a turn of phrase, a time zone. For the FBI's cybercrime division, these were the breadcrumbs they needed. Meticulously, they pieced together the digital puzzle. They cross-referenced IP addresses, analyzed voice recordings from the vishing calls, and monitored online forums where the hackers hung out. Slowly, the net began to close. The first to fall was Derp, a 16-year-old from North Carolina. Then came Cubed, another teenager from Scotland. Finally, in February 2016, British police, working with the FBI, raided a home in the East Midlands of England. They found their main target, the infamous Kraka, the mastermind who had terrorized the US intelligence community. His real name was Ken Gamble. He was just 15 years old. The story seemed to be over. A group of misguided teenagers had been caught. But this was just one chapter in a much larger story about government surveillance and the people who dare to challenge it. While Ken Gamble was playing his digital games, a much more serious player had already changed the world. Let's rewind to 2013. The name on everyone's lips wasn't Kraka, but Edward Snowden. A former NSA contractor, Snowden did something unprecedented. He didn't just hack an email account. He walked out of the National Security Agency with an estimated 1.7 million classified documents. These weren't just personal details. They were the blueprints of a global surveillance machine of unimaginable scale. Snowden's leaks, published by journalists Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, revealed that the NSA, in collaboration with other intelligence agencies, was secretly collecting the phone records of millions of ordinary citizens. They were tapping into the main servers of tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Apple through a program called PRISM, vacuuming up emails, photos, and private messages. They were spying on foreign leaders, even allies. It was a revelation that shook the world to its core. The US government was furious. They branded Snowden a traitor and charged him under the Espionage Act. Officials, including James Clapper, the same man hacked by CWA, went before Congress and denied the existence of these mass surveillance programs, a statement that was later proven to be a lie by Snowden-owned documents. The debate was fierce. Was Snowden a hero, a whistleblower exposing government overreach to protect civil liberties? Or was he a traitor who had endangered national security and aided America's enemies? The truth, as always, is complicated. Snowden's supporters argue that he sparked a necessary global conversation about privacy in the digital age. His actions led to legal challenges and some reforms, like the USA Freedom Act, which placed some limits on the NSA's bulk data collection. They see him as a patriot who sacrificed his freedom for the public good. He believed that the people had a right to know what their government was doing in their name. On the other hand, intelligence officials argue that the leaks caused enormous damage. They claim that terrorists and foreign adversaries learned the NSA's methods and changed their communication tactics, making it harder to track them. They argue that the programs Snowden exposed were legal, approved by secret courts, and essential for preventing terrorist attacks. For them, Snowden wasn't a whistleblower. He was a criminal who betrayed his oath and his country. So we have two very different stories. On one side, a group of teenage hackers, CWA, driven by a chaotic mix of ideology and teenage rebellion. Their methods were crude, their goals unclear, and their impact, while embarrassing for the government, was ultimately limited. They were caught and faced the consequences. King Gamble was eventually sentenced to 2 years in a youth detention center. On the other side, we have Edward Snowden, an insider, a highly skilled intelligence professional. His actions were deliberate. His motives were ideological, and his impact was world-changing. He remains in exile in Russia, a stateless man, celebrated by some and condemned by others. What connects these two tales? They both expose a fundamental vulnerability at the heart of our modern, hyper-connected world. It's not about complex code or unbreakable firewalls. It's about people. The teenage hackers exploited the human element, a gullible customer service representative. Snowden was the human element, a trusted insider who decided his conscience was more important than his security clearance. Both stories force us to ask difficult questions. How much privacy are we willing to give up in the name of security? Who holds the immense power of surveillance accountable? And in an age where a teenager in his bedroom can challenge a superpower, what does security even mean anymore? The lines between hacking and activism, between whistleblower and traitor, have become incredibly blurred. The digital ghosts they unleashed continue to haunt the corridors of power, reminding us that in the 21st century, the biggest secrets are often just one click, or one phone call, away from being exposed to the world. Thank you so much for watching. These stories are complex, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think was right? Let's have a respectful discussion. And if you found this deep dive interesting, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories from the hidden corners of our digital world. See you next time.